I used to think the past stayed where it belonged. In memories, in old photographs, in songs that sounded distant enough not to hurt anymore. I was wrong. The past waits. Quietly, patiently, and sometimes it stands behind a cafe counter on a rainy afternoon, looks up at you with familiar eyes, and says your name like it has never stopped belonging to them. I came back to the city with a suitcase full of unfinished drafts and a heart I was certain had already healed. The publishing house called it a temporary assignment, 3 months to curate local stories, interview longtime residents, and capture the soul of a place that was slowly being swallowed by glass buildings and cafes pretending to be memories. They wanted authenticity, roots. I didn't tell them the city was where I learned how to love and how to lose. I didn't tell them this was where Jiwon lived. I told myself it had been 12 years, that it was enough time for feelings to dull, for names to lose their sharp edges and become neutral. Enough time for me to stop flinching whenever someone laughed the way he used to. The train station smelled the same, oil and dust and something faintly metallic. The announcement voice was different, but the platform still felt like a held breath. Tight, suspended, waiting to exhale. I should have felt nostalgic. Instead, I felt 16 again, small, exposed, unfinished, like a version of myself I had abandoned but never quite buried. I didn't plan to see him. I swear I didn't. The cafe was just there. I ducked inside because the rain came down harder than expected, the kind of rain that soaks through confidence and leaves you stripped down to your bones. I shook the water from my coat, annoyed at myself for forgetting an umbrella like some kind of cliché protagonist who never learns.
Then I heard it, a laugh. Soft around the edges, familiar in the worst possible way. My body reacted before my mind could catch up. My chest tightened. My hands went numb. When I looked up, there he was, Jiwon. 12 years hadn't erased him. They had refined him. His shoulders were broader, his posture more relaxed, like someone who had finally learned where he belonged. His hair was longer now, tied back loosely, a few strands falling into his eyes when he leaned forward. The same eyes. They met mine. And for a terrifying second, I watched everything flicker across his face at once. Shock, recognition, disbelief, and something that looked dangerously close to pain. Minjae? My name had never sounded so vulnerable. I opened my mouth and realized I'd forgotten how to speak. "Hi," I finally managed. "Idiot." He didn't move. Just stared at me like I was something he'd imagined too often to trust. Then quietly, "You're back." It wasn't a question. "I am." That was all we said for a while. Rain drummed against the windows, steady and relentless. The cafe hummed softly with a life that had nothing to do with us, like the world was politely pretending not to notice. "Coffee?" he asked eventually. "Yeah. Yes. Please." He made it the way he always had. Less sugar. Slightly more milk. He still remembered. That realization hurt more than I expected it to. We didn't talk about the past at first. We talked about safe things. Neutral things.
The cafe, he'd opened it 5 years ago with a friend who later moved abroad. The slow days. The regulars who ordered the same drink every morning. I told him about my work, about living in Seoul, about deadlines and meetings and stories that weren't mine but somehow lived inside me anyway. We avoided the words then and us like stepping around broken glass. I kept going back. I told myself it was for research, that the cafe had the right atmosphere, that I worked better with background noise and good coffee. I knew I was lying to myself. I went back because Jiwon listened the way no one else ever had. Like every word mattered. Like silence wasn't something to fill but something to share. Sometimes we laughed. Sometimes we sat quietly. Sometimes our knees brushed under the table and neither of us moved away. Every time I left, my chest felt tight, like I was borrowing something I didn't deserve. At night, I dreamed of him. In my dreams, we were still 17 and 18, lying on the school rooftop, sharing earphones, arguing about nothing. In my dreams, I never left. Waking up was the worst part. The question finally came on a night when the cafe closed early. The rain was back. Soft, persistent, unrelenting. Jiwon locked the door and flipped the sign, sighing as he did. "You never liked rainy days," he said, almost absent-mindedly. I swallowed. "You remembered." "I remember a lot of things," he replied. Then, after a pause that felt deliberate, careful, "Why did you never reply?" The words hit me like a slap. "I did," I said immediately, too quickly, too defensively. Jiwon looked at me then, really looked. His expression didn't accuse. That was worse. "I waited," he said, "for years." My throat closed. "I wrote," I whispered, "so many times." He frowned. "I never got anything." Something cracked open in my chest. "I thought you didn't want to hear from me anymore," I admitted. "You stopped writing first." Jiwon shook his head slowly. "I moved. I told you before you left." "You told me you might," I said. "You said you weren't sure." "I was sure," he said quietly. "I sent you the address." The room suddenly felt too small, the air too thin. "I never got it." Silence fell between us. Thick, heavy, and terrible. The truth surfaced slowly, painfully, like something long buried finally demanding to be seen. "I thought you forgot me," Jiwon said, his voice barely steady. "So I convinced myself I didn't matter that much to you." The words hurt because they mirrored my own thoughts from years ago. "I never forgot you," I said. "I tried. God, I tried. But every time I met someone new, I kept waiting for them to be you." His jaw tightened. "Do you know how stupid it felt?" he said. "To still love someone who never replied?" I flinched. "I'm sorry," I said. "I'm so sorry." He looked away. "I spent years thinking I wasn't enough," he continued. "That you left because staying with me wasn't worth it." "That's not true," I said desperately. "I left because I was scared. Because I thought if I stayed, I'd never become anything. And I wasn't something worth staying for?" The question cut deep. "You were everything," I said. "That's why I ran." He didn't step away. Neither did I. The space between us felt unbearable. Too loud, too charged. I could smell him now. Coffee, rain, something unmistakably Jiwon. My hands curled at my sides, fighting the instinct to reach out. "Minjae," he said softly, and my name broke open in his mouth. I looked up. His eyes were darker now, unreadable, restless. "I used to imagine this," he admitted. "You're standing in front of me again. I always stopped right before this moment." "Why?" I asked. "Because if I let myself imagine touching you," he said, his voice dropping, "I wouldn't have survived knowing it wasn't real." My breath stuttered. Slowly, like he was giving me time to pull away, he lifted his hand. His fingers hovered near my wrist, not quite touching. "You can tell me to stop." I didn't. When his fingers finally closed around my wrist, warmth shot straight through me. It wasn't sexual, not yet, but it was intimate in a way that stripped me bare. He traced the inside of my wrist with his thumb, right over my pulse. "You're still here," he murmured. "So are you." For a moment, his forehead rested against mine. Our breaths tangled. I could feel his restraint. The way he held himself back, the tension coiled beneath his stillness. If he kissed me then, I would have fallen apart. Maybe he knew that, because he let go. And somehow that hurt more. Things were different after that. Not better, not worse, just heavier. We were honest now, but honesty didn't erase the years we'd lost. It didn't erase the almost loves, the wrong-timed connections, the nights we spent wondering what if. Sometimes Jiwon would pull away suddenly, like he remembered he wasn't allowed to want this. Sometimes I'd catch him staring at me with something raw in his eyes, only to look away when I noticed. I wanted to touch him. I didn't. I was afraid that if I did, I'd ruin what little peace we'd built. Then one night, After too much wine and not enough courage, I asked, "Did you ever love someone else?" He hesitated. "Yes," he said finally. My heart sank. "But I never loved them the way I loved you. That didn't make it hurt less." "I tried," he continued. "I really did. But there was always this part of me that was unfinished." I nodded. "Me too." Silence stretched between us. "I'm afraid," he admitted. "What if we're just clinging to the past?" I looked at him. "What if we're not?" The deadline approached faster than I wanted. 3 months passed like a cruel countdown. The return ticket sat on my desk, mocking me. Jiwon pretended not to notice. On my last night, the rain returned. Of course it did. We stood by the river, city lights trembling on the surface like they couldn't hold themselves still. "I leave tomorrow," I said. "I know. I don't want to," I admitted. He inhaled sharply. "Then don't. It's not that simple." "Was it ever?" he asked. I looked at him, really looked, and saw the boy who waited, the man who stayed, the love that never faded. "I don't want to lose you again," I said. "I don't think I'd survive it." Jiwon stepped closer. "Then don't let silence decide for us this time." I laughed weakly. "You make it sound easy." "It's not," he said. "But loving you never was. That was it. That was the moment." I canceled the ticket, took a smaller roll, stayed. The rain soaked us before either of us cared. Jiwon laughed breathlessly, running a hand through his wet hair. "You always hated getting drenched." "I hate leaving more," I said. The words came out before I could stop them. He froze. The river reflected the city lights, shaking like my hands. Jiwon turned to me slowly, eyes searching my face like he was afraid of what he'd find. "Say that again." "I don't want to leave," I said. "I don't want to lose you again." Silence. Then he stepped closer. "Minjae," he whispered, warning in his voice this time. "If I kiss you, I won't be able to pretend anymore." "Then don't pretend." His breath brushed my lips before his mouth did. The kiss was hesitant at first, barely there, like he was asking permission even now. I answered by leaning in. When our lips fully met, something inside me finally broke. Years of restraint collapsed into heat and relief. His hand slid into my coat, gripping the fabric at my waist like he needed to anchor himself. The kiss deepened, not frantic, but hungry, familiar, real. He pulled back just enough to rest his forehead against mine, breathing hard. "I never stopped wanting you," he confessed. Kissed him again, slower this time. "Neither did I." The rain kept falling. We didn't notice. That night, neither of us suggested sleeping alone. Jiwon's apartment smelled faintly of soap and old books. The space felt lived in, warm, like him. We moved around each other carefully at first, like we were learning the shape of something precious. When we finally lay down, fully clothed, the distance between us lasted less than a minute. He turned toward me, hesitant. "Is this okay?" I nodded. "Stay." He did. His arm wrapped around my waist, pulling me close until my forehead rested against his collarbone. I could hear his heartbeat, steady, grounding. "I used to lie awake imagining this," he admitted quietly. "Just being close." My fingers curled into his shirt. "I thought I was pathetic for wanting it so much." "You weren't," he said. "You loved." The words settled between us. Heavy, honest, undeniable. When his fingers brushed my hair, slow and reverent, my chest ached in the best way. Not with urgency, but with safety. We kissed again, unhurried, soft this time. No desperation, no fear, just warmth. I fell asleep to the sound of his breathing, realizing something incredible. This wasn't longing anymore. This was home. The days that followed weren't perfect. We didn't slip seamlessly into happiness like a montage. There were awkward moments, hesitation over holding hands in public, pauses where old habits resurfaced. Sometimes Jiwon would go quiet for no apparent reason, retreating into himself like he was bracing for disappointment. Sometimes I caught myself checking my email obsessively, half expecting someone to call and tell me I was making a mistake. One afternoon, after a particularly tense silence, Jiwon finally said, "You look like you're already leaving." "I'm not," I said immediately. "But you're still living out of a suitcase." The words landed harder than he probably intended. That night, we argued for the first time. Not loudly, not cruelly, but honestly. "You don't know what it was like," he said, his voice shaking. "Waiting, convincing myself I was over you, only to realize I wasn't." "I know," I said. "I lived with it too." "You got to leave," he shot back. I stayed. The guilt clawed up my throat. "And I came back." "For how long?" he asked. I didn't have an answer. That silence nearly broke us. It was my editor who unknowingly forced my hand. She called one evening, cheerful and oblivious. Told me there was an opening in Seoul again, better pay, more exposure. Asked if I was interested. I stared at the cafe window across the street, at Jiwon wiping down tables, sleeves rolled up. "No," I said. She paused. "Are you sure?" "Yes." When I hung up, my hands were shaking. I crossed the street and walked straight into the cafe. Jiwon looked up, surprised. "I need to tell you something," I said. I told him everything. About the offer. About the fear. About the fact that choosing him didn't mean my doubts disappeared. It meant I was willing to face them here. When I finished, he didn't speak right away. Then he walked around the counter and hugged me. Hard. "I don't need you to promise forever," he said into my shoulder. "I just need you to choose me today." "I choose you," I said. "Every day I stay." That night, when he kissed me, it was different. Deeper. Certain. His hands framed my face, thumbs brushing my cheeks like he was grounding himself in the reality of me. The kiss lingered, unhurried, filled with everything we hadn't said out loud. When we pulled apart, his forehead rested against mine. "You're really here," he whispered. "I am," I said. "I'm not going anywhere." The suitcase stayed unopened. Days turned into weeks, weeks into routines. I started writing at the cafe in the mornings, Jiwon bringing me coffee without asking. Sometimes our knees touched under the table. Sometimes he leaned down and kissed my temple like it was the most natural thing in the world. We didn't announce anything. We didn't need to. Love settled into the spaces between us quietly, deliberately. One evening, while cleaning out old boxes in the cafe storage room, I found them. The letters. My letters. Unopened. Yellowed. Returned. My hands shook as I held them. Jiwon froze when he saw my face. "Minjae." "I know," I said, swallowing hard. "It's not your fault." But the weight of them, of all that lost time, pressed down on me anyway. Later that night, we read them together. Some made us laugh. Some made us cry. One ended with, "If you ever read this, it means I found the courage to stay." Jiwon reached for my hand. "You did," he said. "Eventually. That's enough." That's why the framed letter hangs on the cafe wall now. Not as a reminder of regret, but of survival. Some loves don't fade. They wait. Every time I see it, I think about how close we came to missing each other forever, and how, this time, I stayed. Thank you for listening to our story. Please show us your support by subscribing to our channel and also like and share the video. Thank you.